This is the last session of the day, so please follow me and step briefly into my time machine, mid-journey. You can tell by the colors and everything. I would like to play a sound, and I'm wondering how many of you will know what the sound is and from where the sound comes out. So can you please have the sound? Too easy, huh? I'm not sure. There are newer generations that don't know. What is this? Dial-up modem. So welcome to 1996. As you probably remember, websites were pretty much text-based. There were no graphics. We used Yahoo to search the internet. We also used Alta Vista. But there is also one important thing that happened in 1996, and that is the fact that the concept of business ecosystem was first introduced. That was the first time that somebody mentioned the term business ecosystem. And during the years, as the technology matured, this term of business ecosystem slowly morphed into something that we call digital ecosystem. Today are strongly supported by technology. And today I will talk with my guest here, Enkelejd. Hi, Kelsey. Fabian Pohl, Managing Director of PACTA. It's a company that provides AI-based operations management solutions.
Thank you for having me.
I'm under heavy impression after your talk, Enkelejd. And what were your main drivers for moving to the cloud?
There were two moments, before the 24th and after the 24th. We had a plan before the 24th to go to the cloud to accelerate our transformation. We are a bank. We want to do banking. We don't want to do servers and data centers and all of this stuff. So that was the key. So we want to pay more attention to our core function. After the 24th, it became BCM, continuity, resilience, sustainability. It's all about guaranteeing that we keep the business running at all times. Before the war, it was a plan of roughly a year and a half minimum. After the war, it was done in 3 months. So that was the difference. So we had two drivers.
Yeah, and why I'm asking this question is because I know it's difficult. It's always looking in hindsight, but did you ever at any point in that journey think of digital ecosystems as your goal of migration?
When I talked to the CEO and I said, Alexander, this is a large investment, but it's an investment in our strategy. So it would help us. So it is a no regret move. We will pay it now, we'll pay it in a year from now. Yeah, we need it now. And yes, it was supporting our strategy. Ecosystems are part of my strategy and our strategy as a bank. APIs, payment platforms for the market. We are one of the key banks financing agriculture in Ukraine and creating this value chain between agriculture and other producers. So yes.
And Kelsey, you've been working with many clients and looking from a technical point of view, in which areas is cloud helping organizations the most when it comes to building digital ecosystems?
You call it the cloud as if it's this imaginary thing that doesn't require any understanding, and most people don't understand it. And so they create this mystery around, it's going to take us years to put servers from here to there. Shouldn't take that long. But the cloud to me is a very old idea, right? This idea of you either have a marketplace, when you create an ecosystem, a place for people to come sell things. Walmart is a good example. If you manufacture goods, you can open up your own store. Probably no one will come. But if you sell your stuff in a place where everyone is already going, you have an ecosystem. Or you're the platform. So if you make wood, you have an ecosystem. People build things with wood. So either you're going to have the materials or you're the marketplace. That's it. And the cloud is just both of those. In some cases, it is the place where you come to be a marketplace. So if you're building software, you can go to the cloud today and they are the marketplace. And in some cases, the cloud has gaps in their own features. And you mentioned APIs, which I think is a critical component. When a platform has an API that can be extended or a plugin system, then it creates an ecosystem for anyone building additional software. I think Microsoft was a good example, right? You have Windows, the OS, but if you want a calculator, you have to go and get some third-party software, and they can run on the Windows operating systems. Video games are another thing. So I think this is a very old concept, marketplaces and materials. Cloud for some people now is a thing that allows you to be in a marketplace or focus on providing the platform or using the materials. And I think you made a good point that most of us in the tech world, IT world, we spend, I don't know, 30, 50, 60, 70% of our bandwidth installing and upgrading and configuring software. There's not a lot of value in that. So when you take that away, great companies can take that 60% back and go do things to make their platform become an ecosystem itself. In the cloud, I think the first thing that companies realize to participate, if you're an insurance company, you can monetize lots of things. You can sell insurance policies, or you can sell risk assessment APIs. I think this is what companies are realizing, is that all of this data you have, the tools and techniques that you use for your core business, it turns out other people would love that functionality, like fraud detection as a service. I think lots of banks thought that those things were secret sauce, and you just focus on giving people accounts and making loans. But there's this core piece of functionality that if you productize it and you made it available, then you now have created a whole new platform play or ecosystem for yourself.
Fabian, your company is running a successful SaaS solution, also in the cloud. You build it in the cloud. Can you give us some info about the solution and in which way cloud helped you?
Firstly, the cloud was a necessary part of our solution, because without a cloud, we cannot build it. So that was a necessary part. It was a strategy at the beginning to build it completely cloud only. That's the point. Because what we are doing exactly is in legal operations management. So we have a lot of different ways to do it, but the first, what we said is we want to build it no code. So we have two approaches. The first approach for our customers are the holistic approach. So they don't have to use isolated solutions. They can do it completely on our platform. And the second one, of course, is the no-code solution. So we wanted to focus on our development. We wanted to focus on our product, and we have to be efficient as efficient as possible, because we have big competitors from the US who have 2 million, 300 million, $2.5 billion to spend in their development. And therefore, we have no time to create it on premise, for example. And therefore, we are using, for example, Google Cloud, because the cloud helps you at the beginning when you want to scale a platform. They hide sometimes little bad code because we can scale up the function, we can book another virtual machine, and that's a super important step to start the business, to onboard the first customers, to spend not that much money on data centers or something else. We can just use it, put our product on the cloud, our legal operations management, and we can focus on the most important points, like privacy, like security, because we are working with very confidential and very, very, very confidential data, because we are using AI for contracts. We have to think about the GDPR, the ISO certification, etc. And therefore, the cloud was one of the most important pillar of our company to scale it.
I'd like to go back to what Kelsey said. Our concept of building right now, I mentioned it. We have a concept of platforms, insight, and value streams or domains. Cloud allows me to decentralize work for the first time. As a developer, I was suffering from the dictatorship of the infrastructure. I still suffer from it. Sometimes I wake up in the night and I sweat. Cry in the pillow. I have really bad. So cloud is a brand name, but it's more a democratization of execution. You can shift left, more close to the team. Actually, the title of our strategy for the next 3 years is called Shift Left. Closer to the business, closer to the people. And yeah, we had challenges, but nothing that you could not overcome. As I mentioned with COBOL, which was the first thing which we moved to the cloud, by open COBOL, containerizing it, so everything can be solved. But the decentralization and democratization of tools to allow smaller teams to go end to end, this is for me the biggest value it provides. Because we do now, one, we say no monopolies. All platforms are open source or inner source. So everybody can change everything. We break dependencies and we shift left. So I can reallocate that capacity to my business, to my humans. I can lower the cognitive load of my teams. Finally, no any more dictatorship of infrastructure. Please don't. I will go from the back door. I will escape.
I think it's really important to explain why the cloud works in this way. I've always been very neutral or in some ways against the DevOps mindset. And people are like, why, Kelsey? Collaboration is good. I was like, I would rather have a silo with an API in between the silos. And when you think about the cloud is very siloed. Most people who use the cloud will never meet anyone who works on that cloud. And the reason why this works is the cloud forces an API by default. You cannot have a cloud service with no API. In the enterprise, the API is like a Jira ticket. I want a VM. Open the ticket, fill it out, justify things. Maybe you will get it. Someone will make a decision. And it feels like that small government of having a debate on, can I get a VM because I need one? Where in the cloud, it's very clear what the contract is. This is the API. If you call it, you will get this, and it costs this. You can make that decision all by yourself. I think in the typical enterprise, the way we think about infrastructure, there are no APIs on a lot of the infrastructure. We're out of storage. How am I out of storage? I can't see that. Yeah, we have to order more storage. It's gonna be $2 trillion. For more storage, yes, 2 trillion in 6 months, right? I think in the cloud is very different contract. It's like, you need storage, we have it. Our job is to give storage behind an API. But I think enterprise teams, if they understood what done meant or what it's like to provide a platform, you almost have to ask yourself, if you work on a platform team, you should have an API for every capability you say you provide. If you tell the team that you manage Kafka on-prem, and there's no API, meaning if I have to talk to you to get access to Kafka, you're definitely falling short, and everyone that needs to use Kafka feels like this. Why am I talking to you about something that is so elementary of creating a queue in Kafka and sending data to it? Do we need to collaborate on that? Probably not. And so I think that's the mystery of the cloud, is that every service has an API. And if you've ever seen a child use Legos, yes, it can be complex. There's a bunch of pieces, but they all have APIs on them. At the top, they connect together, and people get really creative because there is very clear intention. These things will fit together. And you may need some glue every once in a while to make it hold.
Scotch.
But at least there is a head start to make it go.
When we talk about moving to the cloud and existing in the cloud, Fabian, you are obviously in the cloud full from the beginning, but people usually think in terms of all or nothing. So it's something in between, but it's hybrid approach, but it's usually either full in or hybrid approach. Enkelejd, where are you on this journey, and what is your feeling that organizations should aim for? Full cloud, hybrid mode, and what are your thoughts when we should choose one over the other, if we should choose one over the other?
Like, I knew our reason very clear. We wanted to settle a transaction without touching Kyiv because Kyiv would be bombed. Clear. So I moved 89%. I don't give a damn. If one component is on the ground and that's bombed, my payment doesn't work. So what the hell happened? So yeah, but we're 98% done. No, you are not 98%. You are 0% done, and then you go to 100% done. So depends a lot on what you're trying to achieve. Now, from my experience in this journey, which we had to rush it, we made one early decision. A guy of my tech guy, my top tech guy, Rodion, he calls me, he said, Enke, we want to do it the easy way or the hard way? I said, I said, Rodion, you know me enough. I believe that easy choices, difficult life, difficult choices, easy life. So he meant lift and shift, VMs, or Terraform and infrastructure as a code, everything. I said infrastructure as a code. We got help, we went the hard way, because we would have to do another cloud migration from cloud to cloud. In place. So we went the hard way because so what I want to say, depends on the problem which you have, very much. For me, it would not cut it if I even leave a single component in the ground.
Yeah, but you have a very specific circumstances in this case. And I must say, I wasn't even aware of that perspective. I mean, I read an article, an interview that your CTO gave for McKinsey. It's a great blog post. Please do try to find some time to read it. And from this post, it actually became clear that you cannot have any of data in your data centers in the country.
Yes, but look, even beyond that, today, if I would do it again, let's say I go to another country and we want to run a transformation, depends what we want to achieve. But if shifting left would help us, I would go rather for all-in. I say now you cannot stop smoking a little bit. But it's more about real infrastructure as a code. It's about shift left. It's about APIs. It's about your platform teams. Gregory, the CTO, when we hired Gregory, when I was doing interviews, I found the most rebel guy to manage my platform. Because if I would put the previous infrastructure guy, he would build a data center on the cloud.
He would replicate whatever he was doing on-prem.
So Gregory came from an industry. He started to work at 16. He is super rebel. He is very, he's technically good. He hired a good team. He's known in the community. And he was instrumental, but he didn't execute it. He was principle-based. If somebody go to him and said, Greg would do it for me, he said, no, I'm sorry. You do it yourself. Because I'm like alcohol. If you get addiction to me, you will not be able to live without me. So to answer your question, I would do it all in. We tried to run workloads half-half. It was way more complicated. So it depends on the problem, a lot.
Fabian.
No, I want to add something, because I spoke with my head of data science, and he said, okay, we have two choices. We can create small solutions for our AI, or we can try to train LLM. So that was for 2 weeks. And of course, we can only do it with the cloud, because we have only the power to train it. And we have to train it 24 hours or something like this. And that's, for example, in my opinion, it's the problem at the use case, and sometimes the legal things as well. But for AI, for example, in my opinion, the cloud solution the only way in the future.
I wanted to ask Kelsey, does this resonate with what you see with other enterprises?
No. Because most people.
Well, but you said
the reason why I say
you would
no.
embrace
The reason why I say no
well.
is because that kind of leadership doesn't exist throughout all enterprises. Most people are only managing. We bought IBM, we will pay the bill, and we will hire people to manage IBM. That's it, and then I will leave. So there's going to be no additional choices unless required. You're talking about an existential threat where there is no debate allowed. There is no option. There is no pick from these three. You only get one. And anyone that can execute on the one must leave. There is no room for deciding either you're helping or you're not. So that binary situation doesn't exist in most companies. They can play around for 15 years. And if they're still making money, no one's going to actually care. But when you take that option off the table, it's a serious function. COVID was that for some companies. It was evolve or die. And so it's unfortunate that you have to wait for these big events for people to actually demonstrate the ability to execute. I think going to the cloud in general, when people make a decision, and I think you highlighted something super important. If you do exactly the same thing you're doing on-prem in the cloud, you're going to get taxed 2 to 3x premium.
Yes.
If you don't go to the cloud and change what you're currently doing, you're losing. You're going to lose, right? Now, I think you make a good point. NVIDIA GPUs are hard to get. Even if you have the best data center team in the world, you cannot buy them. NVIDIA is not going to sell them to you. They have all been bought by the major cloud providers. If you want to use them, you have no choice but to go there. So those cases, look, you are forced because of supply chain issues. But I think the calculus has to be, if I go to the cloud, what am I getting back in return for that premium? And most people don't have that idea, just that their CIO went to a conference. Someone said, we're going to the cloud by 2026. And they come back to the team and they have no explanation why they've chosen that date or what it actually means for anyone. And I think a lot of people are executing on that strategy. And it has if you ask them what happens if you didn't go to the cloud by 2026, no one could tell you because they don't know why they're going to the cloud by 2026. That's the reality. And so leadership like this, the reason why that person that you hired was able to execute is because it was very clear that this is the move forward. And this person wasn't going to have to play political games to get people on board with the strategy.
But we're going back to context versus alignment. So in this case, context was very clear. And the vision, why we are going.
So when you have context, there are, let's say, we were roughly 1,000 people in IT. We cut, as say, 180 out. So these guys from all teams, we're going to do it. Please, everybody else, step aside. They will do what they do. And there was so much problem solving. Only IBM broker, we built in 2 weeks, 3 solutions. Today, my main internet banking operates like this. Front end in Amazon, middleware in IBM Cloud, databases in RDS, Amazon. Yeah. How it happened? We tried 1, 2, 3, 4. All of this communication happened in between experts, not between managers. Managers are there just to make you slow. Well, I'm sorry, I'm there. Look, I can say this because I'm a manager. I know. So, and that's what I see. When I say context is more powerful than alignment, I mean, managers do alignments. Engineers solve problems. And context help them which problem to solve first. That's it.
There's a lot of LinkedIn profiles being updated right now. To take the manager out. Yeah. But you realize, though, that this is a huge problem in the enterprise because I've seen it unfold. I joined a company as a VP of engineering, and I looked at the hiring process. A team gets a task that they don't want to do, so what do? You hire.
Yes.
You bring in this person, and you say, all the stuff we don't want to do, you are now the director of the thing we don't want to do. And you're like, wow, I am director. And then you get the work and you say, oh, I don't want to do this either. So you hire the manager of things that no one wants to do. And before you know it, you have this huge layer. And then those people join your team. You say, hey, what are you here to do? I'm your new manager. There's been a reorg.
Oh, yeah.
What do? I don't know. I manage things.
I manage stuff. Are you aware of the Parkinson law? There's a gentleman called Parkinson. His name I don't understand, I remember it. He's a lord. And he analyzed bureaucracies. And he analyzed, do you have time? Give me 30 seconds.
We have until dinner.
Sorry, man, because... and he analyzed bureaucracies. Like he said that when the British Empire was the strongest, the British East Company headquarters was the smallest. And when British Empire was the weakest, the headquarters of the British East was the biggest. He said the bureaucracy grew itself by 5% year on year, regardless of results. Bureaucracies like to multiply. They are like bacteria. Managers bring other managers, which bring other managers, and we all die. Die meaning in a way, update our LinkedIn profiles. It's another way.
Or you have to demonstrate as a leader. You know, when I was at VP of Engineering, they gave me this really fancy office. And the first thing I did was turn my office into a meeting room and move my desk next to the team that needed help building things. And so a lot of my leadership was being on the whiteboard. And I still like to code, so making prototypes, but letting the team see that I understood deeply the things that needed to happen. But as a VP of engineering, at this particular company, they were screen scraping Amazon data because we had a repricing engine for people that were selling things in marketplaces. And I noticed that the team would scramble whenever Amazon would update their product pages, because if you're screen scraping, the API is HTML. So if they just redesign the page slightly, everything breaks. And so as the leader of that particular team,
I did that in PHP.
yeah, it's your fault. There's a whole library for it. And as we're scraping, I'm asking the team, why are we scraping this API this way? Why are we grabbing the data this way? What do we need? And it turns out there was only 1% of our customers that needed this data, and there were alternative means. And so I walk over to the rest of the leadership team, the CEO, and say, hey, listen, scraping has to stop entirely. No more having a tiger team respond like a fire drill every time it breaks. It's causing outages, it makes the product look bad, and it has to stop. And I promised the team that it will stop. And so as a manager in this particular capacity, I have to go get consensus. With the product teams, with the CEO, there will be no more scraping. And we put up a board, days until screen scraping is gone. And when we stopped scraping, we pulled all the code out of the apps. And I remember the tech support team was like, I don't know what you all did, but we no longer get tech support calls about the pricing engine failing. To me, that, if you're going to do leadership, you have to go do the things that the individual engineers can't do by themselves.
Fabian, key values of this digital ecosystem, they create a very personalized offer. And it's obviously because they know everything about me. So they gather a lot of data about me, they collect it, process it, they store it. Obviously, there is some kind of privacy issue here. Do you feel like we should be extra worried about privacy in the context of the digital ecosystems?
It depends. So I think, firstly, the customer, the user, wants to have the best solution. They want to click on a button and get all analyses, get complete deep information about their data. So the platform have to work with the data. On the other hand, we have a lot of things to do to manage it, to fulfill the requirements, for example, for the GDPR, for security, that, for example, Google can know it. For example, we have to think about the Cloud Act. Yeah, that super bad thing, but we have to think about it, and therefore it's hard to say we don't have to do anything, just put the data on it. I think we have a few steps before we can say, okay, it's safe, we can work on the platform and be safe. So you need a professional security infrastructure. You have to speak with the legal team. The legal team have to work with the development team. It's not the easiest thing, but the product manager and the stakeholder have to speak, and that's the second thing. And the third thing is that you have to onboard all humans. You have to onboard the product manager, you have to onboard the legal team, the management, and of course the developer, because maybe it's not the most interesting part, the security part for the developer sometimes, but the developer in this way, the most important stakeholder. And therefore, as a user, as a customer, you have to check deeply the security paper, the legal paper, and then you can be safe that, okay, that's a professional company, that's a professional infrastructure. When they are using cloud, you have to check maybe the Cloud Act as well, but then you are safe, then you can choose, or then you can use the platform with your data, especially with AI. It's more important to check it. It's super difficult because AI with personal data, it's difficult to anonymize it, for example, because then you have no value at the end. So it's a pre-check. You have to take a lot of hours into pre-check it, and on the other side you have a lot of hours to develop it, but it's possible. But that's the steps how to use it and how to develop it.
I would assume it's especially difficult and important in your case, since you are not selling T-shirts on that cloud. You are dealing with legal documents and I assume that you should be extra careful and diligent about everything that ends up over there.
And true, if you are not working with personal data, it's much easier, of course. But yeah, for the business systems, you often work with personal data. And in the B2C market, I don't know if you guys all read all the time the data agreement. I never read the data agreement when I use Facebook or something else. I think they have all data from me, but in the B2B, it's often that personal data is used, and therefore these steps are useful. But if you're not working with personal data, then it's much easier.
Talking with Enkelejd before this, we touched upon a topic that is super important. It was important also for you, and this is the financial side of running things in the cloud. So you gave me some numbers that were pretty impressive. How that looked like?
So if you pack your, how to call it politely, current state, for not using the other words. If you pack it to the cloud, it will cost you, I can confirm this, at least 2 to 3 times more expensive. So what happened? We took the decision not to move VMs up and down, because that would be fake. My first month got us worried, because we had a burn rate which would be like 2 times above budget. We established a community of FinOps, which is still distributed like an octopus. My idea of a company is a company which is distributed but works with full ownership. Like, you have a total cost. I couldn't care less if you use your budget to pay for Oracle and you are an idiot, or you work with open source and you hire more talented engineers. I'm sorry, nothing against Oracle, just. And in that sense, so we unified the cost on the domain level. We said, you are a domain lead, you want to hire and pay your teams better. If your cloud expenses go up, I'll knock on your door and you will ask you to release people. But if you want to hire and pay them better, yes, please. And that works. Transparency, full ownership of the cost. And we saw a drastic drop the second month and gradual decrease from there on. So now I'm in a burn rate, which is marginally lower than the one which I had on the ground. And what I want to say, when we went, did I know it would go like this? Absolutely not. Was I scared? Of course. It's natural. But it gives you the means to be more clear. But if you do not create the incentives in your culture and a cost awareness, it will not still work. Why you switch the lights off at home? Why you go and you optimize in your apartment? You put solar panels, you put this and that, because you care. When I talked to HR, I said, what kind of people I want to hire for my VP? I want to hire CEOs. I said, but you are CIO, you're not CEO. I said, yes, but I want to work with CEOs. So they have this kind of mindset, like Gregory, like Vitaly. He's a world champion in rising dogs. I said to Vitaly, if you put half of this passion in your team, we are done, we're gonna win. So you need to as well have a very solid recruiting process. I got 5 kilograms making interviews. Oh. Breakfast. That's the reason, right? Oh, shit. No, that's the excuse. So I mean, it all plays together. You cannot neglect one part of the system. You cannot neglect your hiring, you cannot neglect your organization, your cost allocation, your transparency. And we see it. What we don't look at, it degrades.
I think we are in a different situation. Yeah, because our core target is to scale, is to onboard as much users as possible and to scale, to scale, to scale. And therefore, sometimes the money is not the most important point.
You have other priorities.
Yeah, but we, of course, we try to optimize the code. We try to optimize the usage of the virtual machine, the whatever. But yeah, the priority at the moment are to scale it to get a very scalable platform, and therefore it's on the third priority at the moment on our side.
And bank is by no means comparable to a startup in the beginning. What are some capabilities that you see emerging right now in the cloud that will very soon cross that chasm and start being relevant?
Most people don't have basics. Like, we talk about all this innovative stuff, but most people don't have logging for their apps. We've known to do that for 30 years, that you should log what the app is doing so you can troubleshoot and debug. We don't have that. So there's this gap between what's available and then actually using what's available. And so whether I tell you, oh, ML platforms and data catalogs, it's all nice and neat. But the fundamentals of, if you think about the way most people write software, I have to introduce some functionality. Most people do not think about the data model and the consequences. They just build the API, people use it, you might even version it if you have experience. But most people do not do these things. And it causes so much downstream complexity. The data that is being collected on the edge where the customer lives and what gets stored in the database may not even be close to the same. And then the things you report on is dealing with data that has lost so much resolution that you have no idea where it's gone. And so people scramble to use all of these products. Data loss prevention. You don't know what's coming out of your app, that you have to guess. It's good to have a safeguard, but most people have no idea what the app is doing. So if you just think about the fundamentals where you stop and say, I'm just gonna, very concrete example, people that use gRPC, the first thing you have to do is describe the API and the service. What data model are you taking? Before any code is written, you can have your team look at the data model and says, why are you collecting social security numbers? We're not going to store that, and we don't want to have that moving around the network, so remove it now. But that level of attention to detail influences everything downstream, because if I have the schema, I can program the load balancer from the schema. I don't need to talk to the development team. This is the only data that this service needs, because that's what's in the schema. And we can generate all the other security policies. What the cloud does is it gives you an API to these common sense things. If you want to send logs in the cloud, there's an API. But you have to agree that the logs need to be sent in the first place. If you have data at all, how do you make that data accessible to everyone in the organization? You create an API for it. Data sets, BigQuery is a good example. So BigQuery is a very old idea. It's a very old service. And some people will consider it innovative, but the innovative part about BigQuery and any of these data lake, data catalog services is the decision where humans figure out what's what and catalog it. So when you walk into a library, things are in order. You can find what you need. You can discover new things. That's the thing that becomes the game changer. So it's not about going from on-prem to just the cloud. It's the fact that if you actually leverage what the capabilities are, that thing feels like a game changer, right? I've seen even banks do this. If you can catalog all the transactions you've ever made and turn it into data sets, the ML people now have so much more to work with than spending years building data pipelines and massaging data. You've already given them a much better API in order to create better fraud detection. So to me, I never talk about the pie in the sky, stuff that people are way too far away from. I'm saying is you can get to the point where you've implemented all the things from 10 years ago. You will look like the most innovative company on the planet.
How do an enterprise like us look, which we started the transformation and we are in the middle of it? We look like a mosaic. It's a big mosaic. We broke the organization, the architecture. Now it's kind of a big pile of mud, of different cultures, of different patterns, of different ways. When I talk about building patterns, I mean exactly this. Mastering the basics, cutting the tail, introduce versioning. And we wrote a memo in the board and we were discussing about what will be our next 3 years. Where we are failing the most, the number one failure in my organization is design. Design. People run. Run where? Boss said, do it. I'm doing. Doing what? For whom? I cannot believe this is the biggest failure which I have today. We said this year, we said we are done and we have enough technology. The pattern of this year, or the slogan is, we slow down to go faster.
Yeah, yeah.
That is it. So in any town hall, every 2 weeks, we say, we slow down to go faster. We are screwing up a lot by running like headless chickens.
Yeah,
to confirm.
Carrying the water and spilling all over the place. So.
Yes, because we are always late to do something more what?
Yeah.
You know, one thing that's interesting about, we'll use Apple because that's my phone. When you buy Apple product, at the bottom it typically says designed by Apple in California. The amount of work that they put into the design process And of course, they can use a company like Foxconn to build millions of these things. But it's the dedication to the design.
Yeah.
If you nail the design, you can have 50 other partners go execute.
Yes.
And the part where you don't have a design, everyone has to be in the loop way too long. Because like, I don't know what we're building, so we all need to meet.
That is my failure. Exactly that.
Mhm.
Exactly that. API design, UI design, journey, problem design, research. We are completely messing it up.
Designed by. I want you guys to go back in DeLorean and to come back to 2023, even maybe 2025. Fabian, how do you see organizations of the future in your field of operations management using AI capabilities? How do you see the bright future in front of us?
Especially my AI vision changed after the ChatGPT or OpenAI revolution, because I thought it's maybe in 2030 time, but maybe we can do it in 2 years or 1 year, because my vision was and is at the moment, because we are using it or we're trying to using it, that we can change nearly, or we can change and make benefit in nearly every process in the company. It not depends if it's the procurement, the development, the sales, the management processes, because we can use a co-pilot. And that's a super cool thing where we can work in the near future, because we can use a co-pilot for development. You can, I think 80% of the time are Googling. And if I have a co-pilot, maybe I can spend just 40% of the time, because I have a lot of help. Or when I create presentations, when an AI creates some presentations for me, I can work half of my time. So it's huge things, and that was my vision to 2030, to be honest. And therefore, it's super difficult, a tough question to say what are the next steps after that revolution, because I don't know if you're working with ChatGPT, and of course I think you're working with it as well, or with your own tools, because we are focusing on giving our employees all tools. They can try it, they can use it, and we have to develop our next vision, and that's operations management or management for all companies, or for all size of companies, in my opinion. So I think we are in a time where we can develop our vision further, step by step.
Yeah, I think honestly with this AI thing, artificial intelligence, people are very excited. For someone like me, real intelligence becomes even more interesting. The amount of work we have people do that is so mundane that you can ask a computer to generate it should tell us that that work was probably inappropriate for humans. Most people don't even like it. And so when you're dispassionate about your work, what do? You copy and paste. You don't want to put any thought in responding to 100 emails about status updates. So of course it becomes so routine, you will take a generic answer. And for the reader, they don't care about it either. So we're generating work that no one cares about. And so on both sides of that transaction, it can just be generic nonsense, because people will scan the data points anyway. The thing that rises above, in my opinion, are the things that computers cannot do, right? Anyone can fill out a form and tally the results. Okay, but humans are really good at very complex things. We bring emotion, we bring story, we bring ideas that don't exist yet. And when that happens, for when I think about 3 to 5 years from now, I'm thinking of who are the people that will be generating the new data set. And if you're not generating the data set, then you just will become this drone of a person that is just taking instructions from your digital assistant. Wake up at this time, go to sleep at this time. Eat this meal and not eat that meal. That is not interesting to me. That is not a life that I'm like, yay, I can't wait to listen to my computer. I don't think so. I think what most people should do is figure out now you get your time back. If you can put those things on autopilot, go live, go outside, try a new genre of music, Pay attention to the small things in life, like the sound of something cooking. Maybe humans will learn how to tell if a meal is done by the sound only, right? And the recipes will evolve. We will try new experiments. But today, most people don't have time to do any of those things. So I kind of get sad that most innovation around automation only works when everything else below it stagnates, right? The reason why we can automate Linux in the cloud is because Linux is a very slow moving target now. So we can now have automation because the thing we're automating isn't changing. So you can automate it. But humans should be evolving faster than the models can keep up with. So I'm hoping that the reminder is go outside and do things that are worthy of the new data set. And I think that should be the end game for humans going forward, is that now we have a nice baseline. It's going to even the playing field for people who need to do business under the current rule set, but it should free up time for those that want to go figure out how to break them.
I had one question more for Enkelejd, but I will end up now with this. Go outside and use this time.